Sorry.
Okay, thank you very much. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the November 19th Town Board Change of Zone meeting. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Councilman James O'Connor.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of
the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilman. Okay, there are 6 change of zone public hearings scheduled for this evening. Before I begin, I'd like to ask that anyone wishing to address the board regarding our scheduled public hearings, please either use the raise hand function on Zoom or type into the question and answer line stating which particular hearing you wish to speak on. Our first scheduled public hearing is TC 5302A Nether Bay LLC. I'd ask the town clerk, Olga Murray, to please read the hearing notice. Olga, you're muted.
Thank you. Notice is hereby given that the town board of the town of Islip will hold a public hearing on Thursday, November 19th, 2020 at 5:30 p.m. via Zoom webinar and will be streamed live over the internet on the application of Nether Bay LLC, TC 5302A. Applicant requests a modification of covenants and restrictions associated with TC 5302 in order to increase the gross floor area of the basement. The environmental impacts will be assessed on this property located in the west side of South Clinton Avenue, approximately 611 feet south of Montauk Highway, State Route 27A, Bay Shore, 36 South Clinton Avenue, Town of Islip, Suffolk County, New York, also known as Suffolk County Tax Map 0500-4.1900-00-013.005. Town Board, Town of Islip, Olga Hopkins, Town Clerk.
Okay, if the applicant is ready, he can begin with the presentation.
Yes,
Mr. Ferraro.
good evening, Supervisor Carpenter, fellow board members, members of the planning department. My name is Charles Ferraro, principal of Bayberry Capital Group, managing partner of the applicant Nether Bay LLC, doing business at 159 West Bayberry Road, right here in Islip, New York, 11751. Supervisor Carpenter, I apologize for not including this additional FAR request for the basement in our original hearing almost 2 years ago. But it is and always was our intention of utilizing the existing basement square footage in our project. Tonight, we're just asking to add that existing square footage of 4,322 square feet to our total square footage of the approved project.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions at this point for the applicant?
No.
Okay, let us hear from the planning department on this. Sean, if you would.
Thank you, Supervisor Carpenter, members of the board. As stated by the applicant, this requests a minor modification to what was presented to the town board at the beginning of last year. It represents a nominal portion of the overall building as well as the basement. Since the number of on-site residents is unaffected by this increased size in the basement, no adverse impacts are anticipated, and the staff has no objection to the applicant's request. I'm here if you have any questions.
Okay, any questions for the department? Hearing none at this time, anyone who wishes to address the board concerning this application may do so Again, speakers are limited to 3 minutes. And Mary, do you have anyone who's signed up to speak on this?
Nobody from the public has signed up to speak on the first application.
Okay. Alrighty then, since there are no speakers from the public, I'll go back to the board. Are there any other questions, or are there any questions or comments for the applicant or the department? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to close the
motion.
public hearing, adopt the negative deck, and approve the change.
Thank
Second.
you, Councilman Cochran. We have a motion from Councilman Cochran, a second from Councilman O'Connor. All those in favor? Opposed? Application is approved. Congratulations.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, board. Thank you, Supervisor Carpenter.
Okay, we will move now to number 2, TC 5353, Steel Campus LLC and Marcus ISP Apartment Holding. Olga, if you would read the hearing notice.
A notice is hereby given that the town board of the town of Islip will hold a public hearing on Thursday, November 19th, 2020 at 5:30 p.m. via Zoom webinar and will be streamed live over the internet on the application of Steel Campus LLC and Marcus ISP LLP Apartments Holding LLC as tenants in common, parentheses, NYIT, TC number 5353. Applicant requests an amendment of the master plan, a change of zone from PDD Educational Campus to PDD Multifamily, and a modification of covenants and restrictions in order to rehabilitate 14 buildings for the use of a total of 354 apartments and the construction of a community center. The environmental impacts will also be assessed on this property located on the east side of Carlton Avenue, County Route 17, approximately 1,215 feet north of Courthouse Drive, Central Islip, also known as 0 Carlton Avenue, Town of Islip, Suffolk County, New York. Town Board, Town of Islip, Olga Murray, Islip Town Clerk.
Thank you very much, Olga. If the applicant would like to begin.
Yes, I would. Am I on?
Yes, you are. Go ahead, Mr. Forcelli.
Yes, my name is Jeff Forcelli of the firm Forcelli, Deegan, Tirana, 333 Earl Ovington Boulevard in Union, and we represent the applicants Steel Campus and Marcus Apartment Holdings. We have with us members from Steel Equities, Glenn Lestrito, as well as some people from VHB Engineering regarding traffic engineering and environmental planning. As indicated, the premises are on the east.
Let me stop you for a second.
Okay.
Good evening, Madam Chairperson. Brian Kennedy, same appearance. I just asked that my screen be shared as part of this presentation.
Okay. Tom, if you would take care of that.
They have permissions to share their screen if they wish.
Okay, great. Go ahead, Brian.
All right, is it on? We're getting it.
You'll just have to click on the share screen button on the bottom. It's a green button.
Can you view the site plan?
You're not sharing your screen right now.
Brian, you have to hit that green share screen button.
There you go.
Okay.
Great.
The property's on the east side of Carlton Avenue, approximately 1,215 feet north of Courthouse Drive. It comprises 83.40 acres, and it's currently zoned Planned Development District Educational Campus, PDDEC. The site is occupied by 15 brick buildings, which were formerly used by New York Tech for their Central Islip campus. The entire site is located, as I indicated, in the PDD-EC district. What we're seeking in this application is from the town board is approval of a change of zone, a modification of the existing covenants and restrictions on the permitted uses, an amendment to the town of Islip master plan, and a change of zone from, as I said, PDT-EC to the other new district, PDD-MF, which is multifamily. We believe this is consistent with the town's 2005 finding statement. These changes of zone are part of the continuing redevelopment of the former New York Tech property, which has been vacant since 2007. Our application sets forth an adaptive use for the 14 of the buildings on the property, and we would convert those buildings into a luxury multifamily development known as the Belmont at Eastview. The proposed revitalization will result in 354 state-of-the-art apartments for present and future members of the Central Islip community. Just by way of history, in 2007, the applicants went into contract to purchase the property, and we met with some of the civic groups and people in the community to determine a possible use which would be acceptable to the community. The initial plan was to develop it as a industrial center, which when we met with the community was not well received. And what we heard loud and clear from members of the community was that they would prefer a residential development, not industrial, and saving and preserving the existing buildings was very important, both to them and to what they believe to the town of Islip. With this information at hand and studying the property, the current plan was developed, which would do both of those things. It would would make it residential, and it would keep the existing buildings and the exterior beauty of the buildings. Converting the inside of the buildings winds up being quite a task, and not as easy as starting from scratch, but to be consistent with keeping the existing buildings, my clients moved forward with a plan that kept them. Now, as I said, the 14 buildings will be reused, and there will only be 2 additional structures on the property. One would be on the left side, closer to the top. There's a blue building, which would be the community center. And that's the community center, which would be used by the residents. And then we have a small gatehouse, which he's showing now. That's 24/7 to let people in, visitors in. And then we also show in purple, which is the community building. And the community building is for the residents of the community, and it has a great many amenities, which will add to the upscaleness of the project. Now, in terms of trying to compare this to density of other communities, the town's A zoning district provides for approximately the same zoning as this, which is 4.2. We have here 4.2 units per acre, and it is comparable to that. This is not a heavy density multifamily development. It is a very modest for a multifamily development. The housing that we're proposing will include 36 units, which is 10% of the units, which will be designated as affordable housing. And there would be 70 units, which is 20% of the units, will be designated as senior housing for individuals 55 years of age and older. Now, we expect that most of the apartments will primarily cater to residents without children. And the breakdown of the units is 38 units, which is 11%, would be studio units. 180 units, which is 51%, will be 1 bedroom. 128 units would be which is 36%, would be 2 bedroom. And only 8 units would be 3 bedroom units. we believe this is consistent with the needs of the community. Now, our clients, Steel Equities and the Marcus Organization, both are owners and operators of property on Long Island and elsewhere. And people who have seen their projects elsewhere and on Long Island know the pride they take in their properties, and that includes the landscaping. We have submitted a landscaping plan, but it is really a very good plan. Even if you look at the site plan, over 70% of the existing tree inventory will be preserved. We've established walking trails and there's parking and so on, but 73% of the existing tree inventory will be preserved. In addition to that, there'll be 737 new trees throughout the site. The landscaping will cover more than 52 acres of the 83 acres on the site, and we feel it will create a park-like setting. Now, Brian. Yeah, I'm okay. Now, in terms of the community center that is there, the center will have lounges for the residents. There'll be a fitness center for exercise activity and health wellness. There'll be indoor and outdoor pools. There'll be a meeting space. There'll be a basketball and tennis courts for residents of the community. In addition to that, throughout the community, for the benefit of residents, there'll be 4 separate dog parks on the property, which will be strategically located. There'll be picnic areas. There'll be 11 separate picnic areas around the site. There'll be 5 separate playground areas, and there'll be walking paths, which are literally miles of walking paths, which will be going through the site. Now, in terms of the buildings, and can you put those up, Brian? The first one, these are the large buildings and how we expect them to look when revitalized. They're very, very attractive buildings. I mean, they're gorgeous buildings. It would be a shame to lose them. They're an asset, we believe, to the community, and we think the community believes it's an asset to the community. And the restoration of them on the inside will really give a quality place for people to live in. These are the large buildings that were shown. Next slide, Brian. This is one of the smaller buildings, and this gives you an example of the canopy. We're saving the style and architecture of the building, but we're adding a canopy there, which is, and you can see on the building, there's the handicapped ramp that comes up. So we have to meet with the ADA compliances, and we have a canopy where people could wait when they're being picked up and so on out of the rain. The next building we have is the community center. This is a community center. This is going to be a real gem. This is really with all the facilities in it for the people for both winter and summer. And it really in many, many communities have these type of facilities, and people just love to get into them. They're a terrific thing. Now, in terms of site access, there are 3 points of entry to the site, and there are 2 of them are on Carlton Avenue and 1 on Eastview Drive. All entrances will be secure with gates, except and in the front where the guard booth is, that'll be manned 24/7. Parking, the parking far exceeds the parking requirements. We're required to have 628 spaces. We have 907. Gives us plenty of ample room for all our residents. And that's basically an overview of the project. We have now some people from VHB to speak, and the first one I'd like to call on is Bob Eschbacher. Bob Eschbacher is, as we all know, a well-regarded traffic engineer and traffic expert. And if I might, I'd call on Bob Eschbacher to address the board now.
Thank you, Jeff. Good evening, Supervisor Carpenter and members of the board. My name is Robert Eschbacher with VHB Engineering, located at 100 Motor Parkway in Hauppauge. VHB was retained by the applicants to study the traffic and parking issues relating to the Belmont at Eastview project. We prepared a very comprehensive traffic study as directed by the town, and this included several elements. First was a review of existing traffic conditions based on traffic counts we collected pre-pandemic last year at 12 intersections in the surrounding area. We then prepared projections of the traffic which would be generated by this project. These projections were conservative because they were based on 369 units at the time. That has since been reduced to 354 units. We also took a look at the future traffic conditions, taking into consideration the traffic expected from other nearby proposed developments as identified by the town. We evaluated the site access point, reviewed the proposed parking for the site, and then prepared a detailed traffic report, which has been reviewed by the town and its outside traffic consultant, LK McLean Associates, and both are very satisfied with the scope and analysis methodologies in the study. In addition, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we will likely see some decrease in traffic volume throughout Long Island for the foreseeable future, thereby making our analysis even more conservative. With respect to the traffic, in addition to the traffic for the proposed Belmont at Eastview development, we also took a look at the traffic which could result if the property were to be reused as a college campus. And we found that such a use would generate several times the traffic as this proposed residential development. We also compared the proposed apartment traffic to the earlier proposal to convert the site into industrial and warehouse use, but that would result in heavy trucking and delivery vehicles, potentially a 24/7 operation. That proposal was abandoned based on community input, resulting in the proposed development, which will preserve the buildings on the campus as presented to you this evening. As Mr. Forcelli indicated with respect to access, in order to efficiently handle the traffic, the site was designed to have 3 secure access points, 2 of them as shown on the site plan on Carlton Avenue and 1 on Eastview Drive. The southerly driveway on Carlton Avenue will have a gatehouse which will be staffed by security 24/7, and this will serve as the main entrance. Visitors will enter the site at this location. The remaining 2 entrances will be restricted by gates, and residents would gain access by a key card. These 3 entrances will disperse the traffic very efficiently, and the analysis of the intersections included in our study demonstrates that the traffic flow conditions will not significantly be affected. With respect to parking, the site plan provides 907 spaces, far exceeding the 628 spaces required by zoning. In summary, our study shows that the redevelopment of the site with the proposed residential use will not result in any significant traffic flow issues, and very adequate parking will be provided on this campus. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Eschbacher. I would just ask anyone who is not speaking to mute their phone so it will eliminate a lot of the background chatter and noise that we're hearing.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Next, I'd like to call on David Wortman from VHB Engineering to discuss the master plan and related issues.
And before you begin, I would just ask if you could try to keep it to anything new and germane and not necessarily repeat what's already been said as far as number of parking spaces, et cetera. So, you know, we're taking good notes, we're paying attention. So if you have something new to add, that would be great.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Good evening, Supervisor Carpenter, members of the board. My name is David Wortman. I'm the Senior Environmental Manager for VHB with offices in Hopewell. VHB was retained as the environmental consultant to the applicant to review the proposed action and evaluate its potential to result in environmental impacts. A long environmental assessment form and a detailed expanded environmental assessment report were prepared and submitted to accompany the application. As you've heard, the proposal would redevelop an existing developed property and includes the adaptive reuse of the existing buildings. The vacant buildings and the campus in their current state provide little or no benefit to the community and in fact detract from the character of the surrounding area. The expanded environmental assessment analyses related to land use and zoning conclude that from a planning perspective, the amendment of the master plan for the PDD and the proposed rezoning of this site would reinvigorate this portion of the PDD, which has deteriorated over time. It would be consistent with the goal of providing diversified housing opportunities in the town, and it would retain a substantial portion of the site in natural and landscaped areas, which is a great aspect. Further, it would put the vacant property into a beneficial use in a manner that aligns with and it would enhance the character of the neighborhood, would preserve the campus setting and the long-standing character of the subject property through the adaptive reuse. It would significantly improve the condition and appearance of the property through the maintenance of and addition of green spaces throughout the site. The expanded environmental assessment addresses various other environmental considerations, including visual resources, cultural resources, noise impacts, traffic, which you've heard a bit about, community facilities, and all others previously evaluated for the PDD master plan. And each of these analyses conclude that there would be no significant adverse environmental impacts. Those documents have been submitted for the record and are available. But, I just wanted to make one point regarding community facilities specifically. And just note that the analyses in the expanded EA included an estimate of the number of school-aged children that would be generated by the proposed action. Based on the results of the 2019 Real Estate Institute at Stony Brook study, the proposed development was estimated to generate approximately 26 school-aged children, which, to put in context, is equivalent to roughly 1/3 of 1% of the current enrollment in the local district, which is the Central Islip Union Free School District. The number of children expected to be generated at this development specifically is expected to be particularly low, given that the project includes a senior housing component. You've heard from Jeff that 20% of the units are to be set aside for senior housing, which is not expected to generate any children. And further, because the proposed bedroom mix is heavily weighted toward studio and 1-bedroom units, comprising over 60% of the proposed units, and only 8 3-bedroom units are proposed among the total project. VHB recently attended a meeting with the applicant and representatives of the Central Islip School District on November 10th, including Superintendent Dungy, and I believe we satisfactorily addressed their questions at that time, which were thoughtful and productive. As I mentioned, the full environmental assessment form and expanded environmental assessment report are submitted and in the record, available for your review. I respectfully submit that the proposed project would not result in a significant adverse environmental impact. I'd be glad to answer any questions you may have regarding those.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. Okay, just one other thing I'd like to present. Glenn Lestrito is one of the principals of the applicant here, and he would like to basically give a 1-sentence or 2-sentence remarks to you, Supervisor Carpenter, to express his commitment to the community and to the town. Glenn?
Yeah, hi. Thank you. Thanks for having us tonight. And on behalf of Steel Equities and the Marketers Organization, I just can't tell you how excited we are to bring this project to life. I mean, when we look at these old buildings with so much history and to see the deterioration of them over the last 10 years, we're just so proud to really revitalize the campus, and just so proud with what we've created here with landscaping and dog parks and walking trails, and really it's going to be something that the town of Islip doesn't have. It's a real living community, which we're really proud of. We're both Steel Equities and Marcus are both family-owned companies. we're here for the long run, and we plan to be great members and participants and partners with the town of Islip tonight and going forward. I just want to say thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Lustrito. We're going to hold you to that.
You can.
Okay.
So am I. He's never let me down.
We
Now,
have gotten a number of letters over the past months about the project and support. I received one just 2 days ago and was asked to share with the town board from the president of the Foxgate Homeowners Association. They too are supporting the project, and they mentioned that they were very pleased to have it included with the community in planning the project. And the one statement they made, and I know reference was made to the landscape plan, the landscape plan for the site is amazing and will provide lush sight lines for all to enjoy. So it really, you guys did your homework when it came to the community by nature of the very fact that the plans were so drastically altered from what was originally proposed to this total reuse of every existing building. I think that's got to be unheard of, and probably will be recognized along the way, I'm sure.
Thank you.
Mr. Forcelli, is that it?
yes, I think you have all the information that you need, Supervisor Carpenter, and I know you're very, very familiar with your town and your projects in it, so we'll leave it at that and just respectfully request that the board consider this favorably.
All right, well, don't go too far. We're going to hear from the department, and if there are any of the public that wish to speak, and if there are any questions that come up, we'll hopefully have them addressed.
Madam Supervisor, before we hear from the department, I had a question for the applicant.
Oh, certainly. Could you take, never mind, go ahead. Councilman O'Connor.
Mr. Forcelli, like your old friend Frank O'Connor from Locust Valley, us O'Connors don't write as fast as you talk, okay?
Okay.
You mentioned your numbers on the studios and the one bedrooms. Can you please repeat those because I didn't get them?
Sure, just bear with me 1 second while I get them.
I have them here, 38 studio, 180 one bedroom.
Thank you.
128. Okay.
The others are in the CNRs. The 2 bedrooms and the 3 bedrooms are in the CNRs. The studios and the 1 bedrooms are not in the CNRs. That's why I was trying to write it down when he was giving us those numbers. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for the applicant before we go to the department?
Yeah, I have just a procedural, because they're not part of the CNRs, the studios and the 1 bedrooms, or should we be including them in there? In the CNRs? Sean?
I don't.
I can respond to that with our report if you'd like to.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, why don't we then go to the department for their overview, please, Sean?
Sure. And I don't want to belabor all the points that the applicant made. The department is in agreement that this proposal conforms with many of the goals of the Central Islip Master Plan, and we do think it will be a positive benefit to the overall planned development district and downtown Central Islip. A negative declaration has been prepared for the board's adoption, and based on what we've heard from the applicant and the community, the planning department recommends that the board amend the master plan and grant the change of zone. With regards to the mix of studios and 1 bedrooms, it wasn't the department's recommendation to particularly micromanage that, because we believe both of them have comparable impacts, and we didn't want to pigeonhole the applicant into a certain number of those, because those are the least intense of all the apartments. The 2 and 3 bedrooms is where you generate more people, and that was, I believe, a bigger concern of both the planning board and the public. So it was the staff's recommendation that we put a max in the 2 and 3 bedroom and leave it up to the applicant how to propose the mix of studios and 1 bedrooms in case that needs to change in the future.
That makes sense. Thank you. Are there any questions for the department at this time?
I have a question for the department.
Councilman O'Connor?
Thank you. Hey, Sean, I noticed in the covenant and restrictions number 5, as was pointed out by Mr. Forcelli, 36 units are dedicated for affordable housing, which is great. That's something that we like to promote as a board and as a town. And I also noticed in the covenant and restrictions number 1, small letter A, numeral 3, that 69 units are dedicated to senior housing. The applicant had mentioned 70 in their presentation. I don't know if they were rounding up or what the situation was, but my question was, and I wasn't smart enough to think of it when you briefed me on this application, can the affordable housing be mixed with the senior housing units, or do they have to remain distinct? In other words, the 79 senior housing can't be counted towards the affordable? Is that a good question?
First of all, there's no formal requirement in the code for the seniors. That was an offering by the applicant, which the staff had no objection to. With regards to the numbers, the staff felt that bringing it to 69 gave it a mix of 3 bedrooms, so that the applicant didn't necessarily need to mix the seniors amongst the buildings, because it's been our observation that seniors, when they prefer senior living, they want to live among other seniors. If they don't want to live among other seniors, they're not preempted from applying to any of the other non-age restricted units. They can live in those if they so desire. So that explains that, that not disconnect, but the difference in the numbers. With regards to the affordable, there's nothing in the code that specifies whether it has to be one or the other. If the town board so chooses, and if the applicant doesn't object, we can certainly set aside more of the senior apartments as affordable within that 36, understanding that they're the ones who are typically on a fixed income and in our observation have been most in need.
I
So that's up to the town
would
board.
actually argue to the contrary. I would say keep the 69 seniors and make sure that the 36 affordable are amongst the other units. That's what I think would serve the community best.
So perhaps those
objection.
2 different opinions would lead us to think that those that are in the business of building and renting apartments probably can figure it out. So let's not tie their hands.
Well, again, my question was really more of a legal one, Madam Supervisor. Can the applicant use the 36 affordable housing, dedicated affordable housing, and mix them amongst both the senior housing and the non-senior housing? That was my question.
Yeah. And I think the answer was yes, correct?
We believe we can, yes.
Okay. Okay, are there any other questions for the
Sean.
department at this time?
Yes, I have a question for Sean.
Sure, John.
Sean, my son plays soccer up in CI, and if anybody's watching this in CI knows, whoever did this traffic study did not go down Carlton or Lowell at 5 p.m. and any day of the week, especially when the train tracks go down. It bottles up just north of here where that new sunburst is, and it really is a concern, and it really affects the walks of life of the people in Central Islip. Has this study really been, they just look outside the gate and that was it?
No, they were required to study a number of intersections, and I think the crux of it was compared to a fully operational college campus, this actually had less of a traffic impact than what could have been hundreds of students coming in and out over the course of a day. I mean, I would defer to Mr. Eschbacher for the specifics, but that was the observation of the town's traffic consultant.
Well, it's obvious they did not go down during peak hours down Lowell or Carlton, because it's just not, that is packed up even now. Now we don't have people in Sunburst. So when Sunburst opens up, you're going to get them back up even more. I mean, this is something that's real serious for the community up there.
Well, the people that living now adjacent to this community, they have all weighed in and have been very supportive of it. And I really haven't heard too much about the traffic concerns, other than the normal traffic concerns we have all over the place. But
Madam Supervisor, do you mind?
Councilman Bergen?
So Councilman Cochran, I think one of the points that the applicant made was that for all the different uses, including the current use that it already holds, the traffic impact would be far worse if we kept it zoned for educational or if we went to industrial. I think this is the
I
lead.
get that.
Yeah.
It's realistic. Right now, there's no industry and it's backed up. We're putting more vehicles, even though it's residential.
I know, but we're saving all these beautiful buildings, John, and I think to change it to the use that they're proposing for us, as opposed to the use that currently exists, I think that's really what we got to vet out here tonight.
Okay, let's move on. If there are any other questions for the department. If not, Mary, are there any speakers who have signed up to speak on this?
We do. We have about 13 people that have registered with interest. 5 have indicated they would like to speak. So I will, if you give me a minute, I will move in the first of the ones who have said they want to speak. We have Deborah Kavanaugh coming in now. Debbie, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. President
Okay,
of
just to remind you, Deb, you have, if you would just state your name and address for the record, and
No
you have
problem.
3 minutes.
Deborah Kavanaugh, 21 Walnut Street, Central Islip, New York. As president of the Central Islip Coalition, we have met with Steel Equity several times throughout and been in constant phone communication. Their plan for what they're doing, they're maintaining the historical site of the New York Tech campus, which was the old hospital ground, which is important to the community. Compared to all the other projects, they have the least amount of density of people moving in for the amount of property that they have. So we can't complain. So we are supporting the project at this point moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Mary, if you could bring in the next speaker.
I brought in someone else. Okay. I have somebody else. Here you come, Ellen Vargas. I will move you in now.
Ellen, just to remind you, name and address for the record and 3 minutes to speak. Thank you. Ellen?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I just can't understand how anybody could agree with that traffic. I mean, when the college was there, I don't think it was fully occupied to begin with. And I mean, I've been living here for 50 years and I never saw that much traffic. You're talking about adding 754 cars, assuming each household has 2 cars on the roads. How could that not be a problem? I don't get it. And I live on right here on Eastview Drive. There's no traffic light. There's one only down further by the courthouse commons. And I know you're putting in a traffic circle, but we need traffic lights. We need to slow it down more than a traffic circle. You have the Little League Park right there. You're going to put the traffic circle right by the Little League Park. And, and I agree with Mr. Crocklin, same thing with the soccer field. I have grandchildren that play in that soccer field. And, the traffic is horrendous over there. I just can't see it. I don't know how you're going to convince me that that's not going to impact. I'm not saying that I think it's a beautiful idea. The buildings, using the buildings and the pictures look beautiful. I understand that. But I can't understand how you're justifying the traffic. That's it. I can't.
Thank you very much, Ellen. We appreciate your comments. Next speaker.
Bridget, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, good evening. Good evening.
If you would, just your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Yes. Good evening, Supervisor Carpenter, and to all the board members. My name is Bridget Job. I am I'm on the Central Islip Civic Council. I'm physically located at 416 Rutgers Road in West Babylon, New York, 11704. I am a board member, and I just wanted to say just a few notes, if that's okay. We have been in contact with Steel Equities with regards to this project. And from the standpoint of the Central Islip Civic Council, we feel very confident that it's going to be an awesome project. It's going to be beautiful, that it's going to essentially help, to maintain an area that has been vacant for quite some time. And we think the plans and the beautification of the area are well welcomed. And we're really looking forward to it, especially since that Steel Equities has made a number of changes to the plans based upon the needs of the community. And we're looking forward to seeing this come to fruition. So we support their endeavor.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next speaker.
Is anybody else, can anybody else hear us who hasn't spoken yet? Because I've been moving a couple of people in. I'm having trouble viewing the people after I move them in. Okay, let's get somebody else. Geraldine Goodman, can you hear us? Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to comment on several.
Okay, if you would, excuse me, if you would just please your name and address for the record, and you have
Sure.
4 minutes.
The
Thank
name
you.
is Geraldine Goodman. I live in Islip Landing, which is just down the road from where they're planning on building. I'm up and down Eastview Drive several times a day, 24/7. The entrance that they want to use on Eastview Drive is about 100 feet diagonally across from the entrance to the ballpark. When the games are going on and the fields are full, and it's even happened during the pandemic, there's not enough room in the lot for all the cars, so they park alongside the curb on both sides.
They do.
Both sides of the Eastview Drive entrance to this complex. And they're talking about putting a roundabout in. If traffic is barely moving then, but there's never been an accident during the last, or that I know of. I can't say there hasn't that I've seen. During the last session that we discussed this, they kept talking about how much safer it was going to be. It's not going to be safer. It's going to be worse. The traffic will be horrendous, especially with the roundabout there. Cars parked on either side, there'll be no room to do anything. When we were to change to something else now, during the last meeting, they talked about, because most people were opposed to rental, the private citizens like myself. If it was owned, condos, co-ops, whatever, it was different, but didn't like the rentals. The speaker for the proposed builder had said, oh no, they're going to be long-term rentals. And when he was questioned on that, he considered 3 years a long-term rental. I don't know where he lives. I don't consider 3 years a long-term rental. And the only other comment I want to make about the environmental impact is I lived in Seaford prior, and they changed a marina that they had there and built homes, and they swore to us there would be no impact. Every summer we lost power many times because of the extra burden. They were not able to handle it. I just think most of you seem to be impressed with this and want it. I understand it'll be very pretty. I think it doesn't belong there. That's my opinion. Doesn't matter for anything.
Well, thank you, Geraldine. I wouldn't say it doesn't matter, but we thank you. Next speaker.
I've moved Candace Rogers in as a panelist, and she has her hand up and saying she would like to speak.
Okay, Candace, again, you have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Candace Rogers. Address is 23 First Avenue, Central Islip, New York, 11722. I was in on the previous meeting for this, and I recall them stating that this would be a a gated community. But they keep saying that this is going to be a wonderful thing for the community, but will there be anything that the community can actually benefit from? Because from my understanding, we won't even be able to see these buildings unless we move into this gated community. But I appreciate the project. I appreciate the efforts to restore and reuse all of the buildings. But I just want to know if there's anything that will be accessible, not necessarily the whole grounds accessible to the community, but in a way for the community to actually see the beautiful revitalization and work that will be done.
Okay, Candace, when the applicant comes back on, we will ask that question.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
That's all.
Thank you so much. Mary, do we have anyone else?
I have Ziomara Foster. Ziomara, did you change your mind and want to say something? Just promoted her to panelist.
It doesn't appear she has a microphone.
Oh, okay. Okay, and then there were two others that did say they wanted to be heard, but I don't see them in the attendee panel. William Kelly and a Donald Brown.
William Kelly is there. He's got his hand raised up.
Oh,
Okay, great. Thanks, Tom.
Good. Hello?
Hi, Mr. Kelly. If you could give us your name and address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes. You have to unmute yourself, Mr. Kelly. Your
Okay.
mic, there you go.
You hear-
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No
My name is
problem.
William Kelly. I live at 832 Kirkland Court in Courthouse Commons in Central Islip. I'd like to echo, what's been said by quite a few of the other people speaking of mostly regarding number one, I'd rather see a condominium community come in there. People that are renting have no basic interest in the community. And this is my opinion. They don't have an investment in the community. So the long-term rental idea, I don't know if that holds any water. My other problem, I believe it'll probably be a beautiful community. I don't know about the 70% of the trees being maintained there because most of the trees are all rotted out. If you've driven through there recently. So that's one thing. But the thing that I am definitely opposed to is the traffic that is gonna happen. Basically, the biggest part, Eastview Drive up by Lowell Avenue, where Foxgate has a exit onto there. It's a dangerous situation already without adding these cars to it. Their exit from their building comes out on the curve of a turning lane. Why they were allowed to put that in there to begin with, I don't know. Now you're going to add, you have Park Row coming out the street just after that. I don't know the name of the street where the Sunburst development is with Farrell. And you're going to have a boatload of cars coming into a intersection there that is right on the curve. Now you're adding also this development as well. It's already jammed up, as I think Councilman Cochrane had said. It's already without these cars, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, there's another development going in, a rental development supposed to be going in down by Truro College. So I think the study that they did, the engineering study they did for the traffic, I don't think they're taking a lot of these things into consideration. And also left out, it was mentioned, the soccer stadium. That soccer stadium has, I think, 10 fields, and you average out maybe 20 players per field. You got, a couple of hundred cars in there at a time when that thing's going to be running full. and they have night lights and everything. So it's going to be both day and night. So I think it's going to be a problem. You're going to have a lot of people coming in that are not familiar with the area, coming to that soccer stadium with the possibility of more accidents. So that's all I have to say. I hope the town
You
takes this
timed it
into
perfectly.
consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly.
Thank you.
Mary, are there any other speakers?
I think that's it. The only other person that did say they wanted to speak was Donald Brown. And unless he's maybe come in on another device, so his name is, are you there, Donald? No. No, I don't.
Tom, is there a Mr. Brown?
I'll check right now.
He's in here, I think, Donald Brown.
I do not see any Brown
Okay,
in either the attendee or the panelist panels.
okay, thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
All right, that is all of the speakers. I'd like to hear from the applicant if they wish to address some of the comments made by the speakers. The issue of condos, community benefit, as Ms. Rogers had raised.
Yeah, this is Glenn Lestrito. I can answer a couple of those. One, we're really looking this as strictly a rental community. Like I said, both Marcus and Steel Equities are long-term landholders, and we plan on keeping this, as a rental community. And yes, it's a gated community, but we look at it as a community, great for kids, the younger generation today, where they can start, rent a smaller unit here and then, move up to the point where they can go buy a house in the town. And vice versa with the elderly people. As they get older, they want to sell their houses, they can still live in the community in Islip and enjoy the surroundings. So I think that kind of answers that. And we're hoping, obviously when it's full, it's going to flourish and it will help, the restaurants and all the local businesses as well. I think that would answer.
Okay, there are no other speakers. I just want to know if anyone from the board has any questions. If you could take down, I guess it was Mr. Kennedy, if you want to take down that screen, perfect. If there are any questions or comments from any of the board members.
I would just ask the applicant if they could elaborate on number 3 of the covenants and restrictions. And an issue was raised as to what benefit the community will get from this. And I think covenant and restriction number 3 kind of addresses that. So.
Yes, this is Jeff Forcelli. That covenant provides that the applicant agrees to pay $2 per square foot of newly constructed building area prior to the issuance of the site plan. All in all, the number will be over $500,000, which will be contributed in accordance with those covenants. And I'd also like to point out that the property now is not on the tax rolls. It's a school property, it's exempt. The property will go on the tax rolls, which provide a significant amount of money to the school district and to the town of Islip, with not many students being added to the school. And we think there'll be a plus. And you heard the testimony of David Wortman. There won't be many students there, and there'll be a plus to the community and to the school district in terms of putting this property back on the tax rolls.
Thank you. Jim, do you have any other questions? Okay, anyone else with questions or comments for the board?
We do have, Tom, the person that you noted her microphone wasn't available. She's writing questions in the Q&A.
I did see that, but I mean, not much we can do for her if she doesn't have a microphone. I guess she can submit questions in writing. I don't know.
Does anybody want Sean or I to read the questions?
Yes, I think you should.
Okay.
Absolutely. If you have them, please.
I'm reading them right now, I believe. I hope I'm doing a good job, Ziamara. Your questions were, What are the price ranges for the various living units? What is the construction duration period? And when will the apartments be available for rent?
Mr.
Glenn, do you
Luciano?
want to answer that or I will?
Go ahead, Jeff. Go ahead.
The apartment rentals will probably be starting in range of the low 2000s, low 2000, 2200, 2300, and it'll go up as with the size of the building, with the size of the unit. The project will be commenced, the construction will be commenced as soon as they have permits to the property, which I don't want to speculate on because that's really a function of the town of Islip. And we would hope that we would be doing it by next early spring. And in terms of the construction period to get everything done, and it'll probably be going in phases because it's a large project, it'll probably be a year and a half or thereabouts. Am I correct, Glenn?
Yeah, I mean, the pricing, Jeff, we're still finishing like budget, so I really wouldn't want to commit to a specific number, but we should be able to pinpoint that over the next 3 to 4 months as we finalize, get closer to, total construction numbers. Numbers are coming in much higher in construction than we thought because the revitalization of all these old buildings are more costly than actually building a new building, believe it or not. That's so. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to commit to one specific number at this point, but over the next 90 to 120 days, we should be ready to give some numbers out on that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. As far as any of the questions or comments from the board? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to make a motion.
You are?
I'm going to make a motion to close the hearing, adopt a negative declaration, and amend the master plan to allow for the proposed development and approve the application.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Councilman O'Connor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our third application tonight is TC 5. You're very
You have
welcome.
a great night. I look forward to working with you guys.
Same here. Thank you. Our third application tonight is TC 5354 Bassett Kaufman 222 LLC, and ask Town Clerk Olga Murray to please read the hearing notice. Olga, could you unmute, please? Thank you.
Sorry.
No problem.
Notice is hereby given that the Town Board of the Town of Islip will hold a public hearing on Thursday, November 19th, 2020 at 5:30 p.m. via Zoom webinar and will be streamed live over the internet on the application of Bassett Kaufman 222 LLC, TC 5354. Applicant requests a town board special permit for a fast food restaurant in the Business 3 District pursuant to 68-302G. Site plan modifications are required as part of this application. The environmental impacts will also be assessed on this property located on the northeast corner of Brook Avenue and Sunrise Highway, State Route 27, known as 1675 B as in boy, Bayshore, 1675 Sunrise Highway, Town of Islip, Suffolk County, New York. Town Board, Town of Islip, Olga Murray, Town Clerk.
Thank you. Okay, we are ready to hear from the applicant.
Good evening, Supervisor Carpenter, members of the board. My name is Anthony Guardino. I'm an attorney with Farrell Fritz in Hauppauge, New York, represent the applicant Bassett Kaufman 222. I have with me Chris Robinson from R&M Engineering and also Wayne Muller, a professional traffic engineer with R&M Engineering. We are before the board tonight, not for a change of zone, but just a special permit to allow for a Starbucks fast food restaurant with a drive-through, and also for several site plan relaxations. Back in October, the planning board voted to recommend approval by the town board and approve the special permit to allow for outdoor seating accessory to the restaurant. Many of the site plan relaxations that we are asking for actually represent improvements to the site, but because we are changing the use, we have to seek those relaxations. But actually, we're making the site better. The site's about 4 acres in size. It's located adjacent to the South Shore Mall in Bay Shore. It is improved with a small shopping center and an existing pad site. The pad site is about 2,400 square feet, and it is currently occupied by a vitamin shop use. The building, however, was previously a Citibank and did in fact have a drive-through in a past life. Aside from the pad building, the site is improved with about a 45,000 square foot shopping center that was formerly anchored by a 24-hour fitness, which is now closed. And there's a day spa there, 2 retail uses, and a restaurant. The site is zone B3, and that's why we don't need a change of zone, which permits fast food restaurants with the special permit from this board. The development actually meets all of the meets the area density criteria for fast food, which is a 40,000 square foot lot. We are again 4 acres in size. It is slightly deficient with regard to the FAR. The code allows 0.25. We're actually at 0.27, so we will need some relief there. And as I mentioned, we are adjacent to the South Shore Mall. It's adjacent to Sunrise Highway. There are no residences adjacent to the site, but there are single-family homes located to the west, on the west side of East Forks Road. And then there's also a garden apartment complex located northwest of the site on Brook Avenue. The site is uniquely bounded by 3 roads, Sunrise Highway, Brook Avenue, and East Forks Road. So it has 3 front yards, and that's, primarily the reason for for some of the relief that we need. Just with regard to the Starbucks, it will be a 2,466 square foot restaurant with a single drive-through, 60 indoor seats and 12 outdoor seats. There will be a small addition on the north side of the building that will accommodate the drive-through. So the building as it exists today is 2,400 square feet, and it will be 2,466 square feet once we add that small little bump out for the drive-through. The drive-through queue will accommodate 12 vehicles, which should be more than adequate for the operation of the drive-through window. But the site has also been engineered and laid out so that in the event of another COVID shutdown, which we hope we don't have, but as you know, during the shutdown, the drive-throughs were very frequently used. There's a site plan, sort of like a COVID-19 queuing plan that can accommodate up to 17 cars on the site. And then finally, with respect to site plan relaxations, we will need it for landscaping and landscaping in the front yard. However, the development will actually increase landscaping in natural area by about 30%, and it will slightly decrease the impervious area that's on the site today. And then finally, the architecture of the building will be enhanced, will be significantly improved to update the dated appearance of the vitamin shop, and will also help identify this building as a Starbucks. We will be complying with architectural conditions that were issued by the planning department. So that essentially concludes my presentation. I have Chris Robinson and Wayne Muller. If the board has any questions, we're happy to answer them.
Thank you. That was quite thorough. Are there any questions from the board at this time?
No.
Okay, let's hear from the.
I have a question.
Certainly, Councilman O'Connor.
Mr. Guardino, you had mentioned the situation with the COVID shutdown, whereby Starbucks closed its Main Street operations and only had open its drive-throughs. Did you have occasion, or did you or your traffic engineer or Mr. Robinson have occasion to visit the 2 other Starbucks on Sunrise Highway that are drive-through Starbucks, the one in East Islip and the one in Oakdale during the pandemic?
Wayne, I'll let you answer that if that's okay. Oh, you're on mute.
Wayne, you need, oh, there you go. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Wayne Muller, Robinson and Muller Engineering, offices at 50 Elm Street, Huntington, New York. I did not specifically visit those facilities. However, I did have the opportunity to visit Starbucks facilities within the town of Huntington, which is closer to my business and residence. And in response to inquiries by Mr. Colgan, and I think, Chris, if you could pull up that plan on the screen, Sean wanted us to address, and the planning board wanted us to address the situation that you're describing. And what we came up with was a plan that will be easily implementable if people are not going to sit inside the Starbucks, but instead are going to remain in their cars. And it would be used by the way of cones. We would be able to cone off the parking spaces that are along the building and create an additional queue that would be what Chris, 7 or 8 cars in addition to what the town requires.
It's 17 total.
17 total. And Chris and I were discussing this afternoon that we could actually double stack the cars along the building and come up with about a 21 car queue, which we believe would be more than sufficient to accommodate the activity at the Starbucks. Again, one thing about the shutdown also is that the volumes on the area roadways are significantly reduced as well, thereby eliminating or reducing any potential conflicts with vehicles on the surrounding roadway network.
No, sorry, it's not working
Yeah.
for me.
I'm sorry, but the residents in East Islip who have dealt with the queuing issue at the Starbucks during the pandemic might disagree with that. But I'm glad to see at least that you have a plan. Would the applicant be amenable to having this alternative plan as part of our covenants and restrictions?
I think that would be fine. So in other words, that in the event that there's a shutdown of the interior space.
I wouldn't want to condition it on that. In the event that the property has queuing issues, which is a possibility that we see at some of our drive-through restaurants here in our community, and I'm sure you see them in Huntington as well. In the event that there is a queuing issue, the town could ask the applicant to adopt the alternative plan that they presented tonight.
Yes, and we would agree to that. In fact, we already have. That was incorporated in the draft covenants that we have to provide adequate queuing. So that's in the covenants that were provided to us, which my client has deemed to be acceptable.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councilman O'Connor. Does that answer all your questions? Okay, if you could take that down. Are there any other questions from any of the other members of the board?
I do. I have a question, Supervisor.
Great. Council, there you go. Councilman Bergen, go ahead.
So Wayne, if you go back to that drawing that you did, how would the cars, if you were going to double queue the line into the ordering station, how do those people who are parked in those slots get out? How do they back out?
All the slots are going to be blocked because during the pandemic, there was no inside dining, or it was very limited. We would block those spots with cones so the people couldn't park there.
Got you. Okay, thank you.
And force them really to use the 11 spots that are located in that, in those 11 spots.
Yeah, okay.
Walk across.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay, let us now go to the department. Sean, if you would.
Sure. As stated by the applicant, this is a proposal to adaptively reuse a retail pad site with a coffee shop with drive-through. The drive-through had previously existed prior to the retail use when it was a bank. The applicant has just showed you that alternative plan, which with the direction of I believe the Planning Commission and Planning Board, we can direct the applicant to install should a queuing shortfall or issue arise. So based on that, the staff has no objection to the applicant's proposal.
Thank you. Any questions to the department?
I have a question, Supervisor.
Certainly.
Sean, I just have a question with respect to the location of the drive-through. Is that the same location as it was at the bank, or are they reconfiguring the location?
Yes, the drive-through did wrap around to the east side of the building as shown before.
Okay, thank you.
If you want to bring up the plan again, but it's effectively in the same spot.
Yeah, if I can just clarify, it's actually the drive aisle is in the same spot, but the window itself has actually been wrapped around to the north side of the building. So where Chris is showing, that's where the window was for the Citibank. And so in order to lengthen the queuing lane, the window now is on the north side, and that's the little bump out. So you add 3 or 4 cars.
Excellent. All right, any other questions for the department?
No.
Hearing none. Mary, do we have any speakers on this hearing?
No, nobody has registered to speak.
Okay. May I have a motion then?
Yes, I'll make a motion, Supervisor, to close the public hearing, adopt a negative declaration, and grant the application.
We have a
Second.
motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilman Cochran. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Opposed? It is approved.
Great.
Thank
Thank
you,
you so much.
Thank you very
Have a
much.
great night, everyone, and happy Thanksgiving.
Happy
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Okay, moving right along. Application number 4, TC 5355, Eastview Apartment Development LLC. Olga, if you would read the hearing notice.
Okay, thank you. Notice is hereby given that the Town Board of the Town of Islip will hold a public hearing on Thursday, November 19th, 2020 at 5:30 p.m. via Zoom webinar and will be streamed live over the internet
Hit that.
on the application of Eastview Apartment Development LLC, TC 5355. Applicant requests a change of zone from PDD-MUN to PDD-MF in order to construct 25 apartments. The environmental impacts will be assessed on this property located on the east side of Eastview Drive, approximately 958 feet south of Courthouse Drive, Central Islip, 0 Eastview Drive, Town of Islip, Suffolk County, New York. Town Board, Town of Islip, Olga Murray, Town Clerk.
Thank you, Olga. Mr. Guisto? Is the applicant ready?
I'm sorry, yes, I'm ready. For some reason, my video is not working. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. All right, Madam Supervisor, members of the board, good evening. My name is Raymond Justa. I represent the applicant. My address is 715 South Country Road, West Bay Shore, New York. This application is related to a 2.2 acre vacant parcel of land that's on the east side of Eastview Drive. It's adjacent to Toro College, and it's across the street from Courthouse Commons. And it's literally just a few hundred feet from both the state and federal courthouses. The present zone of the property is PDD municipal. That's a zone that would actually allow the property to be used for storage of equipment and materials such as sandstone. It will allow use of the property as a municipal DPW yard. It would allow storage of motor vehicles. In fact, less than a quarter of a mile from this site is a Town of Islip DPW yard. It's our opinion that due to the changing neighbor of the area, that's no longer the highest and best use of this property. It's no longer an appropriate use for this property. That type of use we think would only diminish property values, especially at Courthouse Commons. And it would create noise and traffic issues with constant trucks and equipment going in and out along Eastview. Our proposal, we believe, is a perfect transitional use for the property, especially considering the now surrounding area. Our proposal is to change the zone from its existing zone to PDD multifamily. My client is proposing to have a 25 luxury apartment complex. My client is going to preserve as much existing vegetation and trees as possible. Each unit will be 2 bedrooms and 2 baths. There'll be no one unit units. There's going to be a small fitness center, and there's going to be a water feature in front of the building. We believe the benefits of this project over anything that could be used in the existing use is great. There'll be less noise and traffic. It'll fit into the now character of the area. It could provide workers in federal and state district courts an opportunity to work within walking distance to their jobs. My client has a very strong history with the town and has created some nice multifamily projects and has always kept his word as to what he's going to do. My client has worked with the planning department and with surrounding neighbors, and we've agreed that there'll be no vinyl used in this project. We're going to use hardy board planking as the town has requested. It's much more expensive than vinyl, but it's going to add to the building's character. We're going to keep, in light of this PDD district, we're going to, the building's going to have a great deal of brick. And another factor that we think is important is that my client has been working with traffic safety, and we've agreed to do a roundabout in front of the property at my client's cost. And we think that's going to dramatically reduce the speed of drivers along Eastview, and it's going to make it much safer to get in and out of the project along Eastview. I believe that the town traffic safety department has approved the roundabout that we have come up with, and I know they work with our engineer, Mike Williams. And lastly, the applicant will be, if this is approved, the applicant will be paying a $50,000 grant to the town of Islip to be used for improvements in the hamlet of Central Islip, as is a requirement in the PDD zone. So in all, we think this would be a much better use of the premises than the existing zoning. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions at this point for the applicant? Okay, hearing none, let's go to the department.
Thank you, Supervisor Carpenter. As stated by the applicant, the existing municipal zoning does not effectively allow for uses other than for governmental services. There does not appear to be a need for such services at this specific location. The layout of the site plan and the building has been evaluated by the town's Division of Traffic Safety and the fire marshal with no objections to the proposed plan. The additional residents that this provide for the PDD would help to serve the goals of the Central Islip Master Plan. Based on that, the staff has no objection to the application. We're here if you have any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the department?
I do have a question, just to alleviate some of the calls that came into my office, and the questions for Sean, if you don't mind, Madam Supervisor.
Of course not. Go right ahead.
So Sean, I had gotten calls to my office that this was once a cemetery. Can we just put that to bed in some fashion, if that's not the case?
We don't have any records that this was a cemetery, and I do believe, I defer to the applicant, but I believe they'd be preempted from developing on that. And as they go to build on it, that'll come up. And,
yeah,
I'm not familiar with the laws about it, but I don't believe that would be something the applicant can build on.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Councilwoman. Any other questions? Okay, Mary, are there any speakers?
Nobody signed up to speak on this one, although we did have several people from Central Islip who are still in the attendee panel. I would just say if anybody wanted to speak, they need to raise their virtual hand, and I don't see any up.
Okay, thank you. So are there any other comments or questions for either the applicant or the department? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion then.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing, adopt the negative declaration, and grant this application.
Second. We have a motion. Do I have a second? Second by Councilwoman Mullen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It is approved. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Let us move now to the application number 5, TC 5356, Leo Sagristano. Madam Clerk, if you would please read the hearing notice.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. Notice is hereby given that the Town Board of the Town of Islip will hold a public hearing on Thursday, November 19, 2020 at 5:30 p.m. via Zoom webinar and will be streamed live over the internet on the application of Leo Sagristano, TC 5356. Applicant requests a change of zone from Residence A, Business 1 and Business 3 District to all Residence C District in order to construct 16 senior apartments. The environmental impacts will also be assessed on this property located on the southwest corner of Hawthorne Avenue, number 10, and Champlain Avenue, East Islip, also known as 10 Hawthorne Avenue, Town of Islip, Suffolk County, New York. Town Board, Town of Islip, Olga Murray, Town Clerk. And also, Madam Supervisor, I have numerous letters in support that were provided for me for the record from the Planning Department.
Okay. Thank you. And they were made available to the members of the town board. I know that most of them have received them. If the applicant would proceed then, please.
Yes, good evening. Steve Bertolino, 130 West Main Street, East Islip, New York. Good evening, Madam Supervisor, members of the board. I presume you can all hear me?
Yes, we can. Go right
Okay,
ahead.
wonderful. So I just want to let you know that Leo and Frank Sagristano, a local business owner, has been operating Sagristano's Paving. Years ago, they had a landscape company on this site since 1958. It's been a heavily more industrial type use. It's a triple zone. It's a business 3, a business 1, and a residence A. On the Sagristano Paving end of it, they've been using this site as their home base for many years. They also rent out part of the site to other contractors, and all of this is pursuant to a non-conforming pre-existing grant, if you will. That being said, we believe that this is going to be a much better use of the property. We're looking to convert from a B3, B1A to a Residence C district. As of right, if we were to upzone or downzone, depending on how you view it, if we were to go from the B3 and kind of upzone to an A, which is what the primary area of the parcel is, we could probably get 7 or 8 single-family homes on that site. We could also go to a maximum of 28 units if the board saw fit to grant the residential C as our maximum area. For the most part, though, we're only proposing 16 units of a senior apartment complex, which we believe is going to be a much more appropriate use for this more residential area. So even though the current use of the site is primarily industrial, the surrounding area does have some businesses. They've got the Ancient Order of Hibernians Hall right across the street. There's another catering hall down the block, but it is a primary residential area, and that's what we want to convert this site to. We've had some discussions when we had the planning hearings, the planning board hearings as to traffic, and we have to admit, and I had to admit that my client's use of this property as it is today is very disturbing to the neighbors. We've got lots of big trucks, diesel engines starting up in the morning. It's not what you'd really want to have as your neighbor. And that's the tough thing to say as the applicant, knowing full well that we're admitting that, we may not be good neighbors in the eyes of the neighbors, although that my applicants do try hard. So in short, the letters of support are really telling the board and coming from the community that the change here that we're proposing is good. In addition to what we have on the change is the Ancient Order Hibernians rents a small part of this parcel up in the B3 to B1 area, which would be the northeast corner of the parcel, and they use that for parking. We've consulted with the Ancient Order Hibernians Hall. We've consulted with individual members as well as the hierarchy, and they are in full support of this application. Part of the application, as you can see on the side plan, does include renting the Ancient Order Hibernians part of a parking lot. So we have a small parking area now that they use that is simply just dirt and gravel, some overgrown trees, and the cars come in scattered. There's really no rhyme or reason to how that works. We believe as part of this application, by giving the Ancient Order of Hibernians a paved parking lot with striping, we will have a lease with them for long-term use, but we're actually going to clean up their parking and make that a little bit better for the community as well. Right now, you do have people parking on the side of the road. You have people that are exiting onto Champlain Avenue. We're going to have the parking lot is going to exit onto Hawthorne, which we hope will divert some of the traffic from the residential streets and go down Hawthorne onto Connecticut Avenue. In addition, we have a big cleanup going on. Some of the neighbors had concerns about, we'll call it the landscaping, but some of it was just overgrown trees and grasses. We are going to be maintaining all of the landscaping that is mature trees. We will be planting buffers. We're going to maintain our landscape buffers to protect some of the residences. And protect is probably the wrong word. I should say to supplement the residences from these new apartment units. We do have with us Dave Bush tonight, who is the architect, who I'd like to bring on to talk about the actual units themselves. If the board has any questions for me with respect to the zoning or the use, I'd be more than happy to put that forth. I do just want to add one more comment before we go to Dave Bush. The Sagrastanos are local business owners, as I said before. Many people know them in the community. They are getting older. They are looking to retire, and this is going to be their annuity project, if you will. They are looking to hold this as an investment parcel. The Sagrastanos have built a couple of dozen homes out in the Hamptons over the years. They've got 3 houses on the market right now. They've got 4 houses waiting for plans to be approved. So they do have experience in development. Admittedly, this will be their biggest development yet, but this is one that they intend on holding. They want to keep this as their retirement. Their small business owners don't necessarily have a retirement package, and this is it for them. I know that's not really a consideration for the board, but as far as maintenance and control, we're going to be maintaining it. I should say my clients will be maintaining it themselves. They'll be handling the landscaping. They'll be handling the snow plowing. They're even going to engage for on-site curbside pickup. So we don't have any dumpster corrals on site. We're going to have very similar to municipal pickup. Twice a week, we will have a contractor come in, pick up and remove the garbage. And I would imagine several times a week, the Sagrastanos themselves will be by. Frank and Leo will be maintaining the parcel. With that being said, I'd pass this on to Dave Bush.
Good evening, Supervisor Carpenter, members of the board. David Bush, registered architect, firm at 90 West Main Street, Bay Shore. If I could, possible to share a screen this evening?
Sure, just hit share screen.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Can everyone see the screen there?
Yep.
Okay. So again, thank you for hearing this evening. As Stephen outlined, we're discussing a change to a residency, and the proposal in front of us is for a 16-unit cottage-style cluster development, if you will. So just a little colored graphic site plan. To the north is Hawthorne Avenue. The east right here is Champ Avenue. To the west would be Greenwood. So it's an L configuration in terms of site. Our primary gated entrance is off the north, which is the Hawthorne Avenue, and it feeds into a cul-de-sac with single cottages, duplexes, and then, 2 family units, and then triples, if you will, okay? If we look at the zoning alliances with the property, et cetera, the proposals that's here, what the fine print, if you will, points to is that we substantially comply with all of the zoning requirements of the residential C. As Steve had pointed out, the 2.84 acres with version in residence C would allow for 28 units. We're looking for 16 units. We comply with all the surrounding setbacks to the neighboring properties, 25-foot side yards. We have 25-foot landscape buffers, even though it's a residential zoning to a residential zoning. We provide for all the front area. We have approximately 12% of front yard landscaping, inclusive of the parking area, if you will. We have approximately 48% overall landscaping on the site in lieu of the required 20%. So again, substantial compliance with everything. The only relief that we're looking here is relative to a front yard setback within the Residence C. The requirement is 50 foot. We're proposing a 40-foot setback. And the 40-foot setback, what it does is really gain a little bit more green space in the interior of the lot, but it also kind of lines up the proposed dwellings along the street more suitably with the existing residential fabric in the Residence A neighborhood. Again, the Residence A neighborhood has a 30-foot setback requirement on lots 100 foot or wider, and then a 40-foot setback. So again, this moves to align with the existing other street conformance.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Mr. Bertolino, anything else before we go to the department?
No, Madam Supervisor, unless there are any questions.
Okay, are there any questions for the applicant at this point?
Yes, I have some questions. Thank you.
Certainly, Councilman.
Mr. Bertolino, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. O'Connor.
I'm directing your attention to the covenants and restrictions, specifically number 11, small letter C.
Okay, yes, sir.
Would the applicant be amenable to changing the "or" to an "and"? And I'll read it for you. The parking lot on the northeast corner of the property shall remain open to the patrons of the senior living complex and the fraternity lodge on the east side of Champlain Avenue.
Oh, absolutely. And you know, I understand why you're saying that. And the answer is yes. We did have some discussion with this on planning, and we don't assume that we'll need this for, quote, overflow parking. But we certainly want the ability that, you know, if a neighbor within the community, you know, needs to park a car there. I mean, you can't have more than 10 people visit you these days, but maybe that'll change in the future. And
No,
if you do
I'm
need to
actually
park, then you can.
anticipating, I know you had mentioned that the Sagristanos and the fraternal hall have a good relationship today. I'm worried about in the future, if the lease negotiations on that parking lot should somehow fail and those spaces be limited only to the senior housing, the folks who park at that fraternal hall will now be parking in people's driveway on Champlain. So I would ask if the applicant is amenable to it, that "or" be changed to an "and." Is that okay?
Yes, Mr. O'Connor, and your concern is understood, and we actually anticipated some of that, you know, beforehand. And you know, here's my take, just so that the record is clear. You know, we don't want to be held hostage to the Ancient Order of Hibernians, but as the record shows from our past relationship with them, they've been parking on my client's site for years, and there hasn't been an issue. My clients with me just mentioned like 32 years. You know, we're looking to clean that up, and you know, we're looking to make it more presentable for everybody, not just the residents, but for the community at large, and for the club, the Ancient Order Hibernian Club as well.
Thank you. So I would ask Sean if we could to amend those covenants and restrictions to reflect that change. The other question I have, Mr. Bertolino, goes to something you had mentioned in your presentation. Kudos to the Sagristanos. They are fantastic business people here in the East Islip community. Everybody knows them. Everybody uses them for their driveways and their parking lots. I'm concerned that they have never developed a piece of property that would include 16 senior apartments. And I know you made reference to the fact to some single family homes that they may have done in the Hamptons, but this is a little bit of a different a project and a little bit of a different development. And I don't know that they have that experience. Do they? Could you shed some light on that for me?
Well, Mr. O'Connor, you're 100% correct. And I will tell you that, you know, I've represented the Sagristanos we were just talking about that over the last several applications. I've been their attorney now for a good almost 18 years on different matters. To my knowledge, they've developed well over $30 million in residential homes. We're not talking $200,000 homes. I mean, just this year alone, I think we're over 6 million in sales in the Hamptons. That being said, although, you know, my clients do not have experience in building these 16 different units, the overall dollar value of the site is going to be less than what they're also already accustomed to. And I don't want to downplay, how should we say, the luxury nature of these units, but I can tell you that these units are not on the scale of what my clients have developed in the past. Since we all know that the Sagristanos do paving, They install curbs for my clients as well. They install curbs, they do streets, they do parking lots. So when it comes to the development of the site itself, let's just think this through. You have Sagristano's Landscaping and Paving with over 50 years combined experience between Frank and Leo. They know how to put in curbs, they know how to put in drainage, they know how to put in pavement, and they certainly know how to build a dwelling. If they can build a $2.5 million dwelling and sell it to somebody who's, how should we say, pretty particular, I'm sure they can manage to build, the 16-unit apartment complex that I want to point out they intend on holding as their retirement nest egg. This is not something that they want to sell next week, whether the development rights or the units when they're complete. This is what they've expressed to me is going to be passed on to their kids when they're done using it as their annuity.
So that was my question, and you anticipated it, and I thank you for that. I want to ask it pointedly if I can. What I fear is that the Sagristanos are here with a long time reputation in this community with the intention of getting this application approved, only to flip this to another developer in the future. And so in the interest of complete transparency, you are representing to this board that is their intention to keep and maintain and develop this property into the future. Is that correct?
Mr. O'Connor, that is correct. But, I would be remiss if I didn't represent my clients to the best of my ability. And I can tell you that I don't know, I understand your concern, I appreciate it, and I've answered your question. You are 100% correct. They want to keep this as in their portfolio.
And
But
that
I
is their
will tell you-
intention tonight. I know we can't anticipate tomorrow and a week from tomorrow, but tonight, that is their intention.
For a long time to come, that is their intention.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other questions? Okay, hearing none, let's go to the department. Sean, if you would.
Thank you. As stated by the applicant, this proposal is to eliminate inappropriate business zoning and a non-conforming industrial use within a predominantly residential neighborhood. The proposed 16 dwellets can be adequately accommodated on the site. It also provides parking for the Hibernian Hall across the street, which will help mitigate any on-street parking concerns from that use. So based on that, the staff has no objections to the application. If there's any questions, I'm here.
Thank you. Any questions for the department? Hearing none. Is there anyone, Mary, has anyone signed up to speak on this?
Yes, we do have some people. I'll move the first person in now.
Okay, thank you.
Janet Tierney. Janet, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
We can, Janet, and your name and address for the record, please, and you have 2 minutes.
My name is Janet Tierney, 41 Champlain Avenue, East Islip, New York. I'm very happy to see this plan. I'm looking at the site plan dated September 23rd, I believe, 2020. I much prefer this use to the current use with trucks going up and down the street morning and evening, clanking, banging early in the morning, and dust blowing around. So I'd really rather see this development than any other possible use concerning trucks and et cetera in the future. I'm generally against changing zoning in residential areas to multifamily or apartments, condos, but in this particular case, I'm very strongly in favor. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next speaker, please.
Our next speaker is Michelle Leshik. Michelle, can you hear us?
Hi, yes, we just had a buffering problem. This is Michelle Leshik of 7 Woodland Street. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Michelle. Go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Yes, Michelle Leshik, 7 Woodland Street, East Islip, New York. Good evening, Supervisor Carpenter and members of the board. I am extremely in favor of this rezoning because we are very excited for to have a community in our backyard instead of a construction company in our backyard. As Stephen Bertolini, excuse my if I messed up, butchered your name, I apologize. But we,
okay.
Oh, thank you. But we, as he stated, we have a construction company in our backyard, and it is very disruptive. And I wrote a letter in favor of this as well, that we cannot even sit outside and enjoy a backyard without the beeping noises of a construction company, the moving of dirt and dust. So this is very welcomed in our community. I received a letter. We are in the 200-foot zone of the Sagrestano property, so I couldn't be more in favor. My family that resides with me couldn't be more in favor. And even if the Sagrestanos in the future decide to sell this, as long as the property remains residential, that would be fine with me. I do not want to see any more construction vehicles running up and down the road. I don't want to hear them. And I'm being repetitive, so I will close with that. We are very excited about a residential zoning right here in on Hawthorne Avenue and Champlain Avenue. And I'll just say, I said I would close this, but I'm going to say one more thing. There was some concerns about, excuse me. Oh, what is, I'm losing my train of thought. I'm sorry. About the traffic. Sorry, traffic coming up and down. There are 30-something people that work for Sagrestano, and then if you're going to build a 16-residential community, 16-unit community, I can't see that there would be any more traffic. I can only consider it less, and certainly less noisy than the numerous trucks that the Sagrestanos have that are moving up and down our blocks. And it's not just that they start the trucks and leave and then come back. It is they come back to dump dirt, they come back to reload. So it's disruptive. So thank you for listening to my comments tonight. And I am very excited that and hopeful that this will be approved tonight.
Okay, thank you so much, Michelle. Next speaker, Mary.
We have one more person who signed up, and the address, well, they didn't sign up today, but they live in the neighborhood. So I'm moving him into panelist right now. John Kumpa. John, did you want to speak?
John, are you there?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Great.
I'm okay with,
Thank you, John.
Frankie and Leo are good neighbors.
Thanks, John. Okay, there are no one else who signed up to speak on this. I'll go back to the board. If there are any other questions or comments for the applicant or the department. Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Make that motion to close the public hearing, adopt the negative deck, and approve the change.
We have a motion and a second.
Second.
Thank you, Councilwoman Murray. We have a second by Councilwoman Mullen. We have a motion by Councilman Cochran, second by Councilwoman Mullen. All those in favor? Opposed?
Aye.
It is approved. Thank you.
Madam Supervisor, members of the board, thank you and good evening.
You're very welcome. If you could take that screenshot down, please, Tom. Thank you. Okay, we will now go to item number 6. This is an application we had before us at the last meeting. It was reserved, so there is no public portion on this. And we have the applicant here.
I've promoted Karen Borstein to the panel, and I have a couple of Seth Meyers. So one of these is Keith Brown. He's coming in now.
Mr. Brown.
Okay, Keith, I hope I got you in one of the 3 Seth Meyers. I know I got Karen. Karen, can you hear us?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. Okay, Keith, is that your iPhone? It's sideways.
Yeah, let me straighten it out. How's that?
That's good.
Good evening, Madam Supervisor, members of the board. Keith Brown, Brown and Altman and DeLeo, 538 Broad Hollow Road, Suite 301 West, Melville, New York, 11747. We're here tonight for a decision on the matter that was brought in front of the board several weeks ago. Since that time, we've had the opportunity to discuss it with the town attorney. We made certain minor changes to the conditions of approval. They meet with my client's approval, and we are set to have this move forward to a decision and have the board vote on it. We very much appreciate the town's assistance and cooperation with the application. And unless the board has any questions, that concludes our comments.
I think it probably would be helpful if you would review what was changed since you were before us last time.
Sure. There was a request made by one of the council people with in regards to putting a sidewalk in front of the hotel complex along Crooked Hill Road. We agreed to that. There was some discussion with the town attorney about further improvements that are going to be made by the Suffolk County DPW as they relate to the off-ramp of the LIE. We went back and forth with Suffolk County DPW to find out that those improvements are slated for 2025, I believe. And we will continue to operate the shuttle service that we have in place now so that any clients of the facility will be shepherded back and forth in one of the Sprinter vans that we have on location for different shopping runs and doctor's appointments and whatnot that have all been included in the paperwork that we submitted to the town board. And then there was a discussion made to the length of the conditions of approval. After lengthy discussions with the town attorney, he and I both agreed that it was best to leave it so that the covenants and restrictions were not connected to the owner of the property, but rather were connected to the length of the term of the lease that the Friendly Service League had with whichever property owner it may be, the current property owner or any subsequent property owners. And as this board may recall, this amendment to the covenants and restrictions is necessary in order for them to obtain their Tier 2 status from the New York State Department of Social Services. So the impetus in order to get this approved is there, and we would better serve the residents of the community if we were able to get this amendment of the covenants and restrictions as we have applied for.
I have a question about the DPW, Suffolk County DPW, and you said that they have indicated that they are slated to do those improvements on Crooked Hill Road in 2025. Do you have that in writing?
I could provide that to the town attorney's office or the town planning department.
Is it part of their capital plan?
It is.
Well, I, for one, I still have reservations because of the traffic situation on Crooked Hill Road and the number of people that, despite the fact that public transportation or shuttle transportation is being planned for, people are just going to naturally walk down to all of the stores that are north of this parcel. And I know there was some concerns raised about, especially in the evening, about the lack of any kind of lighting there, especially under the overpass of the LIE.
So I have spoken to my client thoroughly about this. They maintain that they've indicated and educated their clients about the shuttle service, making it available to them. And the problem lies in the fact that they have no control over property that they don't own. So in terms of being able to run the sidewalks further north along Crooked Hill Road, they don't have the ability to do so because they don't own that property. So
excuse me, so you're telling me if they were willing to put those sidewalks in, the county wouldn't give them permission to do that? Did they ask the county if they could do that?
It's not just the county, Madam Supervisor. It's several property owners along the length of Crooked Hill Road to the north. It's the next door, there's the landscaping yard, and then further north of that, there's another property owner, and then you have the underpass, and then you have the shopping center. Mm-hmm. So they would have to enter into an agreement. They're just a tenant on the property, so they don't have the wherewithal in order to even pay for the sidewalk improvements to be done. The sidewalk improvements are part of the capital budget for the new work that's going to be done at that whole interchange. They're going to be reconstructing the entire overpass of the LAE and that exit onto Crooked Hill Road.
Well, I would request, I'm still quite uncomfortable about the safety of that area, but I still would like you to get whatever commitment you say you have from DPW in writing and get that to the town attorney.
Okay.
Are there any questions or comments from any of the board members on this?
No.
Okay, is there a motion to approve?
Yes, I make a motion that we issue a negative declaration and approve the application.
We have a
We've already
motion,
closed the public hearing at the last meeting, so we don't need to do that.
right, exactly.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I'm going to abstain on this. The motion carries.
Very well.
And, there's nothing else before us this evening. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Motion by
Thank you.
Councilman O'Connor, second by Councilman Cochran. All those in
Thank
favor?
you.
Opposed?
Thank you all. Have a good
Are
night.
adjourned. Yeah, and thank you, Mary, very much, and Tom.